On July 20th, 2023, a South American radio station was in the middle of a live broadcast that left a lot of people deeply unsettled. The whole thing was being streamed online, so anyone who happened to tune in got a serious case of the creeps. During the broadcast, the host introduced a special guest by the name of Antonio Zamudio, a man described as someone with a long personal history of paranormal encounters. Antonio begins sharing some of these experiences, but when the conversation turns to a particular clown doll, the entire studio falls silent. You could feel the shift in energy just through the screen. Everyone in that room was on edge, and that unease only deepened once Antonio pulled up footage of the doll itself. In the video, he gives a close-up look at the clown, explaining that it had originally been picked up by a family at a garage sale. But once they brought it back home, things started going very wrong. Given Antonio's background dealing with the paranormal, they handed it off to him. So one evening, he set up stationary cameras around the doll to monitor it overnight, and what they recorded will make your jaw drop. The doll moves completely on its own. Looking carefully at the footage, it appears to rise upright by itself before darting across the room. Antonio was every bit as horrified as he was stunned. Suddenly, it made complete sense why that family had been so desperate to get rid of it. There was clearly something deeply wrong with that doll. As of today, Antonio says it's kept sealed inside a glass case following that night's events. Whether anything unusual has occurred since remains unknown, but until more information comes to light, one question keeps haunting everyone who's seen this footage. How on earth did that clown doll move on its own? What you're about to watch comes from a guy named Matt, an Australian solo camper who runs the channel Field Days. This is someone who actively seeks out extreme isolation, deserted islands, zero supplies, no food, no water, no fire. But the challenge he took on this time around might be the one he should have turned down, spending an entire night alone inside a cave that locals speak about only in hushed tones. According to Matt, the first warning came from a friend who had already ventured inside. This wasn't some cheap fright. His friend is the kind of person who doesn't rattle easily, the stoic push-through-it sort. But the moment he descended that man-made chain ladder into the blackness below, something hit him that was far more unsettling than any strange sound or animal encounter. A deep, primal, full-body sensation that whatever was down there did not want him present. Ice-cold chills, an overwhelming sense of being observed, no rational cause, just every instinct in his body telling him to get out. So he listened. Matt, on the other hand, went down anyway. When he reaches the location, the entrance barely registers as one. It's little more than a narrow gash in the earth, strangled by roots and hanging branches, with a single iron chain disappearing into the void below. The kind of sight that makes your stomach drop the second you lay eyes on it. Down inside, the cave splits off into cramped tunnels that curl deeper into absolute darkness. Matt picks one, squeezes through, and makes camp in a chamber that's just barely tall enough to stand upright in. For a while, things stay quiet. Then, they don't. He begins picking up sounds he can't identify. Not wind, not settling earth, something different entirely. He tries to dismiss it. Maybe a bat, he tells himself, but even Matt can't shake the persistent feeling that something is watching him. Then, mid-meal, while he's sitting there eating his beans, it happens. Here's what the camera caught in that moment.
That is beautiful. Baked beans in a haunted cave. Oh my fucking God.
A deep, metallic rattling, the chain ladder striking against the rock wall. Not a gentle drift, not a single loose link shifting. A heavy iron chain moving the way it only moves when something is pulling on it. Matt goes completely still. He knows there's no airflow down here. That chain doesn't just swing on its own. Then the sounds grow louder and more insistent.
It is 100% now. I heard it before. I'm 100% certain it's the chain that I walked in, that you climbed down into this cave on. It's moving. Now, you can't move that chain with wind. It's way too heavy. There is no wind coming in here. There's no wind even for... Holy shit. Oh my fucking God. Look. You must have heard that just then. Look at my arms, dude.
The chain crashes again and rocks clatter against each other like. Father and his son were out on the Santa Fe River, enjoying a casual day on the water with no idea that their camera was about to record something truly disturbing. As they cruised along, they spotted what appeared to be a large shape lurking just beneath the surface.
Anybody can see this or not, but I just reported it. That's a car in the river. That is an SUV. Look at this. Completely fully submerged. It honestly looks like a Kia Soul. Can you guys see that?
Dad, pay attention. We're swimming to the edge.
It turned out to be a Kia Soul SUV that had gone down into the river and, by all appearances, had been sitting there for quite some time. The father later said the two of them were completely alone out there that day, and once they made it back to shore, he went ahead and reported what they'd found. Acting on those reports, authorities tracked down the vehicle and started the operation to bring it up. But once the follow-up footage hit the internet, viewers couldn't shake what they were seeing.
Now, a white Kia Soul.
As the SUV broke the surface and was hoisted upward, something inside it seemed to shift, almost as though a body or some unidentified object was moving around within the cabin. The man who originally found the car insisted there was nobody inside the vehicle. Investigators eventually confirmed it had been reported stolen out of Columbia County, and the evidence suggested it may have been submerged for several weeks. So the mystery still stands. What exactly was moving in there? Was it a person, or something that defies any rational explanation? Drop your thoughts below and let us know what you believe. Two girls are out late at night somewhere in Argentina, filming a building sitting right alongside the road. They had simply been walking home that evening when something they spotted through one of the building's windows stopped them cold. See if you can catch what they saw.
Lo grabé justo.
Inside, a dark shadow was visible darting rapidly back and forth across the room over and over again. And what drew the girls in was the sheer speed of it, far too quick to belong to any person. And the fact that it had been repeating those same movements for more than 10 minutes straight. Later on that very same night, another person in the area notices the exact same thing.
Mira. ¿Paso vieron? ¿Ah? Mira. Mira. Ahí se paró, mira. Ahí está parado,
Mira, Ángel.
Ángel.
Se paró ahí, mira.
Ángel, mira, está parado ahí, mira.
¿Lo ves?
Mira ese negro que está ahí. Ahí se paró, mira. Fíjate si se mueve, mira. Ahí está parado, mira. Mira ese negro que está. Mira de ahí, Ángel. Ahí está parado, ahí. Ahí quedó parado, mira. Ahí se mueve, mira. Acércame, acércame. Mira los negros que está ahí. Ahí eso, ¿Ah? ¿Arriba el techo?
The shadowy figure is once again seen shooting across the space, though this time it seems to pause near the window and rotate slightly toward it, almost as though it's looking directly back at the person observing it, before resuming its bizarre pattern of movement. Afterward, the guy decided to look into the building further and found out that it had been sitting completely empty for quite some time, a discovery that left him genuinely unsettled about what he had just witnessed. A music producer and singer who goes by the name Loza finds himself using a public restroom when, out of nowhere, he starts hearing bizarre knocking sounds echoing through the space. The unsettling part? He's completely alone in there. Naturally, he pulls out his phone and starts recording, and here's what his camera caught.
Te quiero que vean. Estoy ahorita en el baño de la universidad. Pero el peor ahorita es que estoy, bueno, acabo de terminar de hacer el baño. Y pues estaba todo normal. Pero ahorita están ruidos raros. Y se está tocando la puerta, pero quiero que vean que pues no hay nada. Vean, ahí está mi reflejo, pero vean de este lado, pues aquí no hay nada, vean. Acá tampoco, vean. Aquí tampoco hay nada. Aquí pues tampoco, vean. Y acá el lugar es bastante pequeño y está mi reflejo. quiero ver hoy. Escuchar. Escuchar. No hay nada.
Now, you might have blinked and missed it, but as he approaches the stall, a ghostly pale face is clearly visible, peering at him through the gap in the door. Yet the moment he turns to look directly, there's not a soul in sight. So was this the same entity responsible for those knocking sounds, or was the whole thing an elaborate setup? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The following clip was originally posted to the YouTube channel shown on screen, though the actual footage originates from a government-run hospital in India. A security camera captured it late at night, positioned outside a recently constructed wing of the facility. For a while, nothing seems out of the ordinary, and then things take a very strange turn.
हाँ? इसको तो पीछे.
The wheelchair, which had simply been left sitting there unattended, begins moving by itself, rolling toward the exit and out into the surrounding garden. A security guard on duty witnessed the whole thing firsthand, and eventually retrieved the wheelchair and returned it to its original spot. The incident sent shockwaves through the hospital staff, with many convinced that some kind of supernatural presence was responsible for moving it. But where do you stand on this one? Does it point to something beyond explanation, or is there a perfectly rational reason behind what we're seeing? Drop your thoughts below. A man by the name of Mike resides in a home that dates all the way back to the 1850s. Late one night, close to midnight, with his children sound asleep on the upper floor, he headed downstairs to tidy up the toys they'd left strewn across the room. Nothing remotely supernatural had ever crossed his path before, but that was about to change the moment his camera caught something he simply couldn't account for. As he stood in that room, an ice-cold voice cut through the silence and spoke his name directly. It's hushed yet unmistakable, and whatever it was sent him bolting straight toward the staircase. His first instinct was that one of his kids had crept downstairs without him realizing, but when he spun around, there was absolutely nobody behind him, and the color just drained right out of him. His visceral, full-body reaction says everything, and even his dog seemed to be on the same page, practically sprinting out of that room like it had somewhere very urgent to be. Late at night, a group of friends decides to explore the long-shuttered Felix Boons Hospital in Santiago, Chile. With its deeply unsettling reputation, this isn't exactly the kind of place you'd wander into on a whim. But what their camera picked up that evening turned out to be far more disturbing than any of them had bargained for.
Familia estaba aquí en el hospital Felix Boons. Son las... ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es, familia? ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? La 1:08. 1:08.
It's over in a split second. Look carefully though, and you'll spot the dim outline of a figure drifting past the group. Nobody noticed anything at the time. It was only later when they sat down to review the recording that they realized something, or someone, had been sharing that space with them. Those who've seen the footage believe it could be the ghost of a nurse wearing a uniform from the 1950s. So, was this truly a spirit lingering from the hospital's darker days? Or could there be a more rational explanation behind the shadowy presence? Right now, nobody seems to have a definitive answer. A couple settles into their new home and things appear perfectly fine at the start. Then, within just a few days, unsettling sounds begin echoing from various corners of the house once darkness falls. Sometimes it's a knocking coming from somewhere behind the walls, and other times it sounds unmistakably like footsteps moving through the rooms. Determined to figure out what's going on, the husband picks up a camera and goes searching for answers. See for yourself what he found.
I'll introduce them.
Yet there's no sign of any person or creature anywhere in the house. Even so, the noises don't let up. In fact, they seem to get more frightening with every night that passes. To this day, nobody has been able to explain what was behind any of it. Mother was winding down after a tiring day, settled into the living room with a book, while her son was absorbed in his video games. Just another quiet night at home. Everything looked perfectly routine at first, until something unexpected unfolded. Pay close attention to the bookshelf in the corner. A small doll perched on top of it appeared to shift slightly on its own, with nothing visibly making contact with it. Then, just seconds later, a book came crashing down off the shelf, sending the mother into a panic as she bolted out of the room. Once the footage made its rounds online, viewers immediately started debating whether the doll was somehow connected to what happened. A number of people argued the book could have toppled over due to poor positioning or residual vibrations from earlier movement in the house, but plenty of others found it hard to dismiss the fact that the doll had shifted just moments before the book fell, making the whole thing feel a lot harder to rationalize. The person who uploaded the video offered no follow-up or additional context, leaving the clip wide open for interpretation. To this day, no one has managed to come up with a definitive answer. Working the night shift as a security guard is already enough to put you on edge, but doing it at a hotel with a reputation for being haunted takes things to a whole different level. A guard pulling the graveyard shift at Hotel Tamaulipas says he's finally got proof of the entity that people claim has been lurking around the back of the property for years. See for yourself. On the surface, it looks like any other uneventful night on the surveillance feed, but once you zoom in, there's clearly something, or someone, positioned at the far end of the hotel grounds. Even with the image enhanced, nobody can quite figure out what they're looking at. It appears to have luminous eyes and seems to hover just slightly off the ground. A lot of people think the guard may have unknowingly recorded the wandering spirit of someone who met their end at that very location. Vegas Unboxed is a social media creator who documents Filipino culture and her everyday life in America. The paranormal has never really been her thing. She'll be the first to tell you, in her own words, "I'm not a big paranormal person." But something her doorbell camera recently recorded has seriously shaken that stance, and the timing of it makes the whole thing even harder to explain away. Back in December 2025, her niece Jo Bell's husband, Louis, passed away suddenly and without warning. Vegas Unboxed was a constant source of support for Jo Bell throughout that devastating period, checking in with her by phone almost every single day. During one of those calls, the two of them were going over the details of Louis' funeral, the coffin, the floral arrangements, when Vegas Unboxed's phone buzzed with an alert. Her doorbell camera had just detected movement in the stairwell.
You will see that over here, there is an orb, and I've never experienced orbs before. And the only other time that I've ever had them was when my husband was in Texas.
What the footage shows is a glowing orb drifting down the staircase, then slowly ascending before vanishing out of frame. Vegas Unboxed is convinced this is a spirit orb, Louis' ghost, making himself known. Under normal circumstances, she'd chalk something like that up to a dust particle catching the lens. But here's the thing, nothing remotely like this had ever shown up on that camera before. Well, except once, years earlier, right after her mother-in-law died. To Vegas Unboxed, that parallel is impossible to ignore. Both orbs appeared in the immediate aftermath of losing someone close, and both times that person was actively being talked about or thought of in that very moment. She's now firmly convinced her footage represents genuine paranormal activity, that Louis, and perhaps her mother-in-law before him, managed to reach back through whatever lies beyond and send one last signal to the people they loved. A quiet reminder that they haven't truly gone anywhere. Now, spirits like Louis and her mother-in-law seem to carry nothing but warmth, but others we're about to look at, their energy is something far more unsettling. A pretty bizarre clip was posted to Reddit by a user going by Objective Push 3152, showing a strange scene that a security guard recorded while on duty at a local park. Pay close attention to what his camera picked up. In the recording, exercise equipment begins operating by itself, with absolutely nobody visible in the area. Predictably, the footage set off a fierce online debate. There are those who see it as genuine evidence of paranormal activity, while others are convinced the whole thing was staged. One possibility is that someone got the machines going before slipping out of the shot. And this isn't exactly a one-off situation either. Footage like this has surfaced from other locations before, and it always stirs up the exact same arguments. So what's actually behind it? A spirit? Some kind of technical malfunction? Or maybe even minor seismic activity, as a few people have proposed? But whatever the real answer turns out to be, if these machines are genuinely moving without anyone touching them, you have to ask yourself, what is it and why does it seem to want our attention? A group of friends ventured into a cemetery, and what unfolded was absolutely chilling. This footage dates back to 2023 and was captured by a man who headed out with his crew to explore the sprawling historic La Plata Cemetery in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Established in 1886, the grounds are enormous, with thousands of souls laid to rest within its walls. As they made their way through the cemetery, something deeply unsettling occurred, something that defies any easy explanation. See for yourself what the camera recorded.
Están re abandonados, boludo.
La abeja se confunde y hace algo similar en ese lugar. Miren esto, lo que... No. Miren lo que es esto. Los abulones, viste, que hacen los panales.
Out of nowhere, a pale hand emerged from within a coffin, then vanished just as quickly as it appeared. The movement was so brief that it's nearly impossible to catch without slowing the footage down. And in fact, neither the man nor his companions noticed anything unusual at the time. He later posted the video to his channel under a completely ordinary title, with no mention of the hand whatsoever. It was only when sharp-eyed viewers stumbled across it and flagged it in the comments that anyone realized what had been captured. The idea that someone crawled inside that coffin to fake this moment is about as close to impossible as you can get. The crypt is ancient, crumbling, and structurally unsound, and the coffin's wood has deteriorated to the point where it could collapse at any moment. Anyone attempting to get in there would be putting themselves in serious danger. So, where do you stand? Was that hand connected to something beyond the natural world, as many believe? Or do you have a different theory for what we're looking at? The channel, called Did You See It?, has built its reputation around urban exploration footage captured at derelict sites across the globe. Most of the content is already enough to make your skin crawl, but one upload in particular stood out from everything else on the page, drawing widespread attention for being on a completely different level of disturbing. In the clip, a lone man wanders through an old, decrepit building under cover of darkness. The place is dead quiet, pitch black, and seemingly deserted, right up until the moment he appears to sense some kind of presence lurking just behind him. And that's where things take a genuinely chilling turn. Hovering directly behind the explorer, a pair of disembodied feet hang motionless in the corridor. His response is instant. He locks up entirely, unable to summon the nerve to spin around and confront whatever is there. When he finally manages to force himself to look, what he finds is somehow even worse. The figure has shifted further back, but within seconds it begins slowly drifting toward him. The footage then cuts out without warning, leaving the outcome of that encounter completely unknown. What adds another layer of unease is that virtually nothing is known about this video. Not who filmed it, not the location, not even the broader context, which makes it nearly impossible to say whether it's authentic or just a cleverly staged production. Real or fabricated though, if whatever appears in those frames was actually present inside that building, it would be more than enough to shatter anyone's nerves entirely. This next unsettling clip takes us to Cuernavaca, Mexico. The ancient Aztecs regarded this land as a sacred place, home to wandering spirits. When Spanish conquistadors later swept through the region, they reported disturbing encounters, strange noises after dark, inexplicable movements, and what they described as, quote, restless spirits. Centuries later, a man living in Cuernavaca set up a CCTV camera to keep an eye on his 3 dogs throughout the night. On December 7th, just past 4 a.m., something occurs that is genuinely spine-tingling. Without any warning or apparent cause, the kennel appears to be violently yanked forward and then sideways. The dog inside springs to its feet and tears out of the kennel in a panic, growling and confused at whatever disturbed it. The rattled animal cautiously sniffs around, seemingly trying to make sense of what just occurred. A short while later, the 3rd dog wanders into the room, clearly unsettled by all the commotion. That dog just sort of plants itself down and stares at the other one still near the kennel, as if to say, what on earth just went down? But what actually caused the kennel to shift so violently? Was it the presence of something invisible? Did the dog simply have some kind of random episode? Or is there something paranormal stirring on this ancient Cuernavaca ground? As always, that's for you to judge. Moving on, Eric Cannon and his dance troupe from Tacloban City in the Philippines had traveled all the way to Sydney, Australia to compete in a dance competition. Late one night, around midnight, the group was waiting for their train at Sydney Central Station when something across the tracks stopped them cold. Diwalang ulo, gabiwalang ulo, gabiwalang ulo. Magaano, bake MJs too. Guys, bakay KMJS Teo, guys. An elderly woman is visible standing on the opposite platform, except she appears to have no head. And just as you start wondering whether it could be a mannequin or some kind of trick of the light, the figure unmistakably steps forward, moving with total ease, as though absolutely nothing is out of the ordinary. But here's where it gets even stranger, because this deeply unsettling phenomenon isn't limited to Australia. A group of girls thought they'd lined up the ideal sleepover situation. Their friend's place was completely empty, no parents, no supervision, and the whole night stretching out ahead of them. So, the way any restless group of teenagers would, they decided to chase a little excitement. Out came a handmade Ouija board, and they were all laughs for the camera, joking, messing around, treating it like nothing more than a bit of fun. Things felt harmless enough at the start, just a bunch of friends trying to spook one another, but when the session wrapped up, it dawned on them that they might have drawn the attention of something far beyond their understanding.
¿Hay alguien en esta casa? No jodan, ¿en serio se movió? No jodan, ¿en serio? ¿Viste? Vos sos boluda. Ay, no, una joda. Ay, fue una joda, basta. ¿Puedo hacer conmigo? Pero, boluda, jodita, ay, pero para empezar, bien. Pero si vos... En serio. Sí. Hay que terminar. No, mira esta. No. Se mueve. Agárrenme. Boluda. Agárrenme. Ay, no se mueve sola. Ay. Se mueve la cortina, mirá, se mueve la cortina. Ay, boluda. No, ey. No. Ay, boluda. Prende. Tu linterna. Tu linterna. Dale, que tengo miedo, boluda. No. Hay algo acá, boluda. No, yo tengo miedo. Yo tengo miedo. Guadalupe. Ahí está. Guada. Vicky, dale, boluda, no jodas así, Vicky, por favor, Vicky. Victoria, ¿qué querés? Déjala a ella, llévame a mí. Ay, Dios.
The glass moves on its own. No thread, no visible hand, no reflection hinting at anyone giving it a nudge. The surface underneath it is completely level, and up until that moment, the glass had been perfectly still. Then suddenly, the lights cut out. When they flickered back on, a dark, shadowy figure was standing right next to the girl, only to disappear in the blink of an eye without leaving a single trace behind. So what exactly was it? Could it be the spirit these girls called forward through the Ouija board? Or was the entire thing staged from the start? Drop your thoughts down in the comments below. This one comes from a TikToker going by the name Joseph Stalin Loves You, and it was filmed right outside in his own backyard. He's talking to the camera about something that already had him unsettled before he even hit record, something he spotted lurking in the tree line. He mentions he's about to install a fence for his neighbor, and after what he's just seen, he says it can't happen soon enough. He begins inching forward, then pauses and zooms into a particular spot among the trees, and it's right at that moment that you can see exactly what stopped him in his tracks.
You see her? Look at that face. Oh my god. It's right there staring at me. Dude, how scary is that shit? Oh my god, dude. What the f? She's crawling.
If you look carefully, there's what looks unmistakably like a face gazing out from between the branches. Whatever it is appears to hold its stare directly at him for a few long seconds before dropping out of view. Shortly after uploading the footage, he also shared a still frame that he claimed shows the hand of whoever had been watching him, and that extra detail somehow makes the whole thing feel far more grounded and far more disturbing. The real mystery isn't whether somebody was actually standing there, but who that somebody was. Could it have been an elderly neighbor who'd wandered into the trees for some inexplicable reason? Or was this a person deliberately concealing themselves to watch him? Honestly, the idea of a real human being lurking silently that close is more chilling than any supernatural explanation could be. He said he intends to get that fence erected as quickly as possible, and after seeing this clip, it's genuinely difficult to argue with that decision. Whether or not we ever find out who it was, The thought of someone standing motionless in the shadows, just watching, is the kind of thing that doesn't leave your head easily. Alberto runs a tattoo studio out of a single room in his home. One space, his gear, his chair, his customers, pretty standard setup, until that room started doing things he simply couldn't account for.
Me enteré a mi esposa. La neta ya soy bien culo, la neta. Ya ni quisiera. ¿Hay alguien ahí? ¿Hay alguien ahí? No mames, no mames. ¿Ya viste, hija? ¿Ya viste, hija? ¿Hay alguien ahí? Espérate, hija. ¡Hey! Ay, cabrón. Lupita, hasta para allá, Lupita.
Pues tú hazte para acá, ¿entiendes?
Pues no hay alguien aquí, hija. Ay, cabrón.
Entiende que ya te hagas para acá.
Pues su puta nomás, vámonos para allá. Yo creo que sí lo voy a meter. Cerrar con seguro. Las llaves. Miren en la casa. Hombre. Puta madre. No. Absolutamente nadie. No hay nadie. Wow. Yo por eso no lo quería hacer.
A chair rotating on its own, objects sliding off surfaces as though something was nudging them along. He began filming more frequently, and the more footage he captured, the more intense things became, until that room no longer felt like it belonged entirely to him.
Ay, güey. Los chuchos. Ah, Dios mío. Voy a buscar las llaves. No mames, me la jalaron. ¿Qué hago? Voy a entrar. Ay, güey. Mames. Voy a entrar. Aquí no hay nadie. Voy a poner la de esta para que vean que no hay nadie. Sí, es cierto, lo del cuadro de la monja. No me había fijado yo en este.
In another recording, it's the door. Then he starts picking up knocking sounds coming from inside the walls, doors swinging open and shut on their own, and the whole space begins to carry this heaviness that wasn't there before, like something is demanding his attention, or like it claimed that attention a long time ago. Some viewers who've seen his recordings think he accidentally introduced something into that room.
Pues incómodo porque están tocando la puerta, pero no sé si oyen. Pero la neta no hay nadie.
An object, an energy, something that simply chose not to leave. The activity didn't taper off, it built. Alberto has kept the camera going ever since, and at this point, that camera might be the only thing standing between him and whatever's sharing that room with him. This security camera footage shows a man outside his own home in the late hours of the night. He appears to be in the middle of loading a number of items into his vehicle before heading out. Initially, everything looks completely unremarkable and the surrounding area seems totally quiet. Then, right in the middle of what he's doing, something suddenly shows up and instantly catches Berlin's eye. See for yourself what the camera recorded. Out in the yard, a faint, semi-transparent shape can be seen darting past Berlin in a matter of moments. Its appearance is difficult to make out, and it only lingers on screen for a couple of seconds before vanishing entirely from the frame. After catching a glimpse of it, Berlin abruptly freezes and turns in the direction of the figure, seemingly struggling to process what he just witnessed. Even now, the video continues to spark fierce debate, because nobody has been able to explain what that strange shape moving through his yard that night actually was. The following video was recorded by a woman who shares her paranormal experiences online, and this particular night, she says she got more than she bargained for. She sleeps in the bottom bunk of a bunk bed, and on this night, at 3:33 in the morning, she had her phone pointed up toward the top bunk when something caught her attention. That time, 3:33 a.m., carries weight for a lot of people who follow paranormal activity closely, sometimes called the Devil's Hour, a window where unexplained events are said to spike in frequency. She'd been lying there unsettled when she noticed the gray blanket hanging over the edge of the top bunk. Watch.
Hace apenas 2 días, toda mi familia y yo presenciamos, nos tocaron la puerta, era la 1:15, 1:20, la verdad exactamente no sé los minutos, pero era pasado 1 de la mañana. Obviamente, iban a abrir la puerta y yo no, o sea, ¿qué pedo? No la abras, o sea, claro que no. Primero buscamos una lógica de que si hubiera caído algo dentro de la casa, algo que hubiera hecho un ruido que como que pareciera que estuvieran tocando, algo dentro del closet, algo dentro de una bodega, algo en la lavandería, algo que azotara la pared, ¿sabes? No había nada. Todo estaba en su lugar. Efectivamente, tocaron afuera 3 veces, fueron 3 golpes. Si alguien sabe qué significa 3 golpes, de que así, 3 veces, fuerte, a la 1 de la mañana, todos lo escuchamos, todos, inclusive mi familia que está viendo la tele a todo volumen en la sala, escucharon, tanto como yo que estaba en otra habitación, todos escuchamos.
The blanket is slowly and deliberately pulled upward, tucked, almost, and then it's gone from view entirely, with no one visibly on the top bunk doing it. Her reaction afterwards says everything. She describes how the blanket moved and, impossibly, a small hair clip she keeps on the top bunk appeared from underneath a pillow. A pillow she says there was no natural way for it to have moved beneath. She muted the audio from the moment it happened because, in her own words, she screamed very badly. That kind of raw, unscripted panic is hard to fake. Some viewers think someone off-frame caused the blanket to move, but others point out the smooth, upward motion doesn't match a simple snag or fall. Either way, it clearly shook her. This next clip was recorded inside what appears to be a child's bedroom. A bright, ordinary room with a bunk bed, a white dresser, and string lights along the wall, at just after 8 in the morning, according to the security camera timestamp. The woman in the footage is simply picking out clothes, going about a completely routine start to the day in what the footage suggests is Sarah's room, when the atmosphere of the whole clip shifts in a matter of seconds. There's a dog, a large fluffy one, that wanders in and out of the closet, and for a moment everything looks completely normal. Then, it got worse. There's no one else in the room, but you can tell from the way she slowly looks up toward the ceiling that she hears what comes next. Something running. Not something shifting or settling, but rapid thumping and scraping from directly above, like something scrambling across the ceiling space. Then come the knocks. 2 sharp bangs, then 3 more in quick succession, and she flinches hard at the first set. Many believe this kind of layered activity, sounds without sources, doors moving without contact, voices with no origin, points to what's often called poltergeist phenomena, a term rooted in German meaning noisy ghost, traditionally associated with environments where a child is present. Skeptics might argue a pet in the walls or loose ductwork, but that doesn't easily explain the way the dog reacted, like it knew something was there even before the woman noticed something was not right. Now, in this next clip, a couple is at home late at night when something appears in the doorway of their bedroom, and what makes this one so hard to shake is the way it just stands there, watching. The man holding the camera is in the middle of reciting the Lord's Prayer in Spanish when he spots it, which tells you something about what kind of nights they've apparently been having in this house. You don't pray over a quiet bedroom unless something has already been pushing you to that point. His voice is calm at first, steady, like he's done this before. Watch.
Que estás en el cielo, santificado sea tu nombre. Venga a nosotros tu reino. Hágase tu voluntad así en la tierra como en el cielo. Danos hoy nuestro pan de cada día. Perdona nuestras ofensas así como nosotros perdonamos a quien nos ofende. No nos dejes caer en tentación y líbranos del mal. Lárgate de aquí. Lárgate. Lárgate. Lárgate de aquí. Lárgate, demonio. Vete de aquí. Está cabrón. A ver. Vete. Vete. La sangre de Cristo tiene poder. La sangre de Cristo tiene poder. ¡A la madre, puta! Hijo de tu puta madre, güey. ¡A su virga, güey! ¡A su madre! No mames, cabrón. ¡Lárgate! ¡Lárgate! Padre nuestro que estás en el cielo, santificado sea tu nombre. Venga a nosotros tu reino. Hágase tu voluntad así en la tierra como en el cielo. Danos hoy nuestro pan de cada día, perdona nuestras ofensas y como nosotros perdonamos a quien nos ofende. No nos dejes caer en tentación y líbranos de mal. Amén. Oh, poderoso Dios, ayúdanos, protégenos.
The figure peeks from behind the door frame. Dark hair, humanoid shape, mostly still. And the moment the man registers what he's seen, the prayer stops cold. He starts screaming commands in Spanish, telling it to get out, calling it a demon, invoking the blood of Christ, before finally slamming the door shut with enough force to shake the camera. When he pans back to the woman in the bed, she's holding a small child wrapped in a blanket, both of them frozen with fear. For some viewers, the religious framing is the most telling detail. The fact that he went straight to spiritual commands rather than assuming an intruder suggests this wasn't the first time something like this had visited that doorway. Others think the figure could be explained as a person, though the way it pulls back and disappears the moment he reacts is difficult to square with that. When he finally opens the door and checks the hallway, there's nothing there. So what exactly was standing in that doorway? And why was it watching? Now, in this next clip, a man broke into an abandoned school somewhere in Mexico, phone in hand, already talking himself through the silence the way people do when they're more nervous than they want to admit. Cracked concrete underfoot, overturned desks piled against pale green walls, a chalkboard still covered in old chalk graffiti, the year 2019 still faintly legible through the blur. He kept whispering to the camera in Spanish, telling his audience there was nothing here, just dust and broken furniture, as if saying it out loud would make it true. But his breathing told a different story. Watch.
Pues ya vieron, güey. Puro pinche pedo, no hay ni madres a la verga. Ay, no mames, no mames. ¿Qué es esto? ¿Quién es? ¿Quién es? ¿Qué verga pregunto, güey?
Some online have called it a crawler or slender type entity, a label popular on paranormal forums. But skeptics point to the creature's perfectly timed appearance as signs this was carefully staged. What do you think? Now, in this next clip, a man in Mexico is alone at home at 1:26 in the morning when he decides to start recording, because something has already knocked on his front door 3 times and he has no idea who or what keeps doing it. He walks through his house with his phone's flashlight cutting through the darkness, narrating to his followers in Spanish, his voice already shaking. He says he's scared, that he doesn't even know what's going on inside his own home anymore. You can feel the tension building with every step he takes. Watch.
Amigos, son las 1:26 de la madrugada y estoy solo, ya van 3 veces que me tocan la puerta a mi casa y relativamente pues yo estoy solo, pero pues la verdad es que sí me da miedo. La neta no sé ni qué onda en mi casa Y pues sí me da un chingo de miedo, les juro. No mames, vete a la verga. No mames, no mames. Vete a la verga. No, neta, vete a la verga. Se acaba de caer esta madre. No mames. No mames.
First, a rhinoceros figurine launches off a shelf inside a glass display cabinet and crashes onto the tiled floor with no one near it, and his reaction is immediate raw panic, running, screaming, swearing in Spanish as he tears through the house. Then, just as he starts to settle into another room, a dark object is thrown violently across the floor directly in front of him, and the clip ends with him screaming. 2 separate objects, 2 separate rooms, no visible cause for either. Some viewers think this is poltergeist activity, a type of disturbance often described not as a ghost, but as a force, something that moves and throws physical objects with apparent intent. Others aren't convinced and think it could be staged. But if you watch how quickly he runs, how genuinely terrified he sounds, you decide. This next clip was recorded by a woman working as a cleaner inside a large 2-story home in Arizona. Daytime, mid-shift with her colleague somewhere on the upper floor. According to her, while the two of them were both upstairs, she started hearing sounds coming from the kitchen below, the distinct noise of cabinet doors opening and closing on their own, in a house where no one else should have been. Her voice is shaky from the very first second. She films herself in what appears to be a bathroom, wide-eyed and whispering in Spanish, explaining that they're completely alone and the sounds are coming from downstairs. Watch.
Estamos en la casa donde dicen que se parece a la casa paranormal y no solamente se parece, aquí han pasado cosas que hemos grabado. Ahorita estoy aquí haciendo un baño y de repente se escucha ruidos. Estamos nada más mi compañera y yo. Les voy a enseñar las escaleras. ¿Estás escuchando? ¿Estás escuchando? Oye, se está escuchando los... Déjenme voltear la cámara. A ver, ¿sí estás escuchando? Pues no está nadie. Miren, vamos a ver. Ya sé. Es que desde aquí ahora se está escuchando los gabinetes. No hay nadie. O sea, no hay nada. No hay nadie. Y no sé si ustedes escuchaban los gabinetes. Pero en el cuarto de allá arriba es donde falleció el muchacho. Oigan. No hay nadie. No hay nadie. Se escuchan los gabinetes. Y ahorita estamos en la parte de arriba. Ay, cabrón. Se siente medio ñañaras. Las escaleras, ¿se escuchan los gabinetes? Mucha gente la confunde con la casa. La paranormal. Ponme un comentario si escuchaste lo que son los gabinetes.
She never catches the source on camera. By the time she makes it down the stairs and pans across the kitchen, every single cabinet door is closed, exactly as it should be. She even stops at the bottom of the staircase, points back up, and says, firmly, like she needs you to understand, that both she and her colleague were upstairs the entire time. No one was down there. The sounds she describes fall into what some investigators call intelligent activity, not random environmental noise, but purposeful movement that responds to the presence of people in a space, stopping just before anyone gets a look. Skeptics would argue HVAC systems and old cabinetry can produce sounds like that in large homes, especially ones with temperature fluctuations. But if you listen to the way her breath catches at the end, it's hard to dismiss what she clearly believes she heard. So what do you think opened those cabinets? This next clip starts as a genuinely unsettling moment. A woman alone inside the old Sorrel Weed House Museum late on a Wednesday evening, moving through a room filled with antique furniture and historical artifacts, a candlestick in hand as she documents her visit. The house is quiet, the kind of quiet that seems to press in from every direction when you're surrounded by centuries-old walls and dimly lit hallways. Then a sudden metallic crash explodes from somewhere deeper inside the building. She freezes instantly. The sound is loud enough that it doesn't feel like an old house settling. It sounds like something has fallen, something heavy. If the location sounds familiar, it's because the Sorrel Weed House has been at the center of ghost stories for generations. Built in the 1840s in Savannah, a city already famous for its haunted reputation, the house is surrounded by stories of tragedy, death, and alleged paranormal activity. According to local legend, one of the most famous stories involves Matilda Sorrel, the wife of the home's original owner, who reportedly died after discovering an affair between her husband and an enslaved woman named Molly. The story claims that Molly later died under mysterious circumstances as well, with some versions suggesting she fell from a balcony, while others imply something far darker happened within the house. Whether those stories are entirely accurate or not, they have become deeply attached to the building's identity. Over the years, visitors and staff have reported hearing footsteps in empty rooms, voices coming from behind locked doors, objects moving without explanation, and the sensation of being watched while alone in the house. Some claim they've heard a woman crying from upper floors where nobody was present. Others describe seeing dark figures standing silently at the ends of hallways before vanishing when approached. People often arrive expecting to learn about the ghosts. They leave wondering if the ghosts were aware of them the entire time. And judging by the timing of that crash, the woman may not have been as alone in that house as she thought. This footage dates back to August 2025 and was captured by a security camera inside a family home. A woman who's been fighting a slow, exhausting mystery within her own walls. One that didn't begin with terror, but with small things that felt off. At first, it was easy to ignore. Toys would turn up in strange places, nowhere near where her child left them. Doors she distinctly remembers locking the night before would be standing open by morning. But what unsettled her most was something harder to explain. Every now and then, the house would suddenly fill with a smell. Sharp, sterile, like medicine, or cold metal, with no source she could identify. For nearly 3 years, she tried to approach it rationally, but nothing stopped the feeling that something wasn't right. Eventually, she installed security cameras throughout the house and began checking the footage whenever she could. On August 23rd, 2025, the cameras finally captured something she wasn't prepared for. The first clip was recorded while her young son was asleep and she was taking a bath. The second clip is even stranger. It was early in the morning, and if you pay close attention, you'll notice that she enters the frame from the opposite direction the figure had just been moving, meaning whatever appears on camera wasn't following her. It was already there. She's hoping someone could help debunk it or point her toward a real explanation. So, what do you think? The following video was captured by CCTV inside a hospital, a place that never truly sleeps. Even late at night, the halls are filled with quiet movement. Nurses checking vitals, machines humming softly, families drifting in and out of wards. But on this particular night, something else may have been moving too. You can see what appears to be the figure of a small child, standing completely still. It doesn't move toward anyone, it doesn't react, it simply stands there, as if waiting. Moments later, the parents of one of the patients walk directly through the figure, and they clearly have no idea anything unusual just happened. Hospitals are often described as some of the most active locations when it comes to unexplained encounters. They're places where fear, grief, hope, and loss all exist at the same time, and many believe that kind of emotional weight leaves something behind. So, was this just a trick of shadows and lighting, or did the camera capture something most people walk past every day, without ever knowing it's there? This footage dates back to 2018 and was captured by a security camera inside a manned store. The store itself is an open-air garage with nearly 20-foot high ceilings, wide open space, and clear sight lines, the kind of place where movement is hard to miss. That afternoon, the owner was alone in his store when this happened. Out of nowhere, his sunglasses drop to the floor. At first glance, it might seem harmless. Maybe they fell off a shelf or were knocked over. But when he reviewed the CCTV footage, he realized something terrifying. No one walked in, nothing passed by. There was no gust of wind, no vibration, and no visible cause. The sunglasses didn't slide or tip over. It flew, as if it had been thrown. Many suggest the possibility of an unseen presence interacting with the environment, something strong enough to move a physical object, yet invisible to the camera. And in a wide open space like this, with nowhere to hide, that possibility becomes even harder to ignore. What do you think happened here? A freak accident, or something watching him work, waiting for the moment to make itself known? You be the judge. In this next video, a man who owns a Mexican seafood restaurant began noticing strange, almost unexplainable movements inside his business. At first, it was easy to brush them off. Small things that could be blamed on long hours, exhaustion, or simple coincidence. Glasses weren't where they were left. Items behind the bar seemed slightly out of place. And sometimes, there was the unsettling feeling that something had moved when no one was nearby. At first, he didn't think much of it, but that changed once the security cameras started catching things he just couldn't understand. In the first video, the man is about to serve a drink, and if you look closely at the tray, one of the shot glasses suddenly moves on its own. He notices it, pauses for a moment, then brushes it off, assuming he imagined it. But the activity didn't stop there. Another clip shows one of the bartenders holding a bottle when, without warning, the neck of the bottle snaps clean off in his hand. Then comes another piece of footage. A bottle shifting on its own, sliding without anyone touching it. At this point, some might argue it only happens during busy working hours. Vibrations, movement, people nearby. But the most unsettling moment comes later, when the restaurant is completely closed. The security camera records creepy audio, faint whispers, low voices, sounds that shouldn't be there when the place is empty. Now the staff can't help but wonder whether these are just a series of bizarre coincidences, or signs that something else may be sharing their restaurant with them. Is it too early to call it haunted, or is this exactly the moment they should start paying closer attention and looking for answers? A woman named Mel and her family had just left their house for a quiet weekend getaway when her phone suddenly buzzed with a Ring camera notification, one that shocked the living daylight out of her. Watch this. On the footage, something or someone opens the front door, allowing her dogs to walk outside freely. What makes this unsettling is that when Mel checked the indoor cameras, there was no one visible inside the house. The door simply opens. Imagine being miles away from a home you're certain you locked, only to watch it open on its own. At that moment, Mel's biggest concern wasn't even the door, it was her dogs. She immediately called her neighbors and asked them to help. Thankfully, they were able to get the dogs safely back inside. Needless to say, that weekend getaway ended right there. This terrifying footage was captured by a nearby house security camera. A guy had just arrived at his mom's place and stepped out of his car to offload a few things, but the camera caught something he didn't notice at the time. You'll see what looks like a human figure walking slowly out of the woods. At first glance, it's easy to miss, but as the figure approaches the car, it suddenly bows down, and then drops straight out of sight, disappearing completely. That's where the speculation begins. People say this could be a phantom person, a phenomenon many believe isn't a myth at all, but something that's been reported for centuries. Stories describe these figures as appearing briefly, often near roads, trees, or homes, only to vanish in ways that don't match human movement. Some say phantom people aren't spirits in the traditional sense, but residual figures, moments caught between time, replaying fragments of something that once happened there. So what do you think? A coincidence caught at the wrong moment, or something ancient and very real stepping briefly into view? This footage dates back to 2017, when a woman was simply trying to get some work done, but whatever was in the room with her clearly wasn't ready to let her focus. At first, the security camera captures something subtle. The chair shifts slightly. It's easy to dismiss. Chairs move sometimes, but then it slides farther than it should, before slowly drifting back into place, almost carefully. And when that didn't get her attention, whatever was there escalated. An object close to her, a bottle on the table, suddenly tips over and falls. That finally makes her react. She looks up, clearly confused, trying to make sense of what just happened. But it doesn't stop there. Moments later, her own chair is pulled backward, forcefully enough to break the illusion of coincidence entirely. This wasn't something falling, this wasn't gravity, this was interaction. And here's the detail that unsettles many viewers the most. If you increase the brightness of the footage, you can see what appears to be a faint silhouette moving backward in sync with the chair, as if something unseen is physically pulling it away from her. So here's the question that stays with viewers long after the clip ends. Was this something trying to frighten her, or something that had been there all along, finally making sure she noticed? You decide. The following footage was captured by a CCTV camera inside a local store late at night, long after the doors had been locked and everyone had gone home. Almost immediately, the internet split into debate. Some say it's nothing more than a draft, a random gust of air moving the toy across the floor. But skeptics were quick to point out how unlikely that explanation is. The toy doesn't slide or tip over. It rolls smoothly, almost as if it's being guided. Others suggested the toy had been left switched on, and that a faulty motor caused it to move on its own. On paper, that sounds reasonable. But here's where the explanation starts to fall apart. According to the store owner, the toy hadn't been touched for hours, and the store was completely empty at the time. What unsettled many viewers even more was the way the wheels moved. Several people slowed the footage down frame by frame, pointing out that the motion didn't look random or jerky. It looked controlled, like someone was pushing it just enough to make it roll. Locals familiar with the store claim strange things have been happening there for years, items falling from shelves when no one is nearby, and faint footsteps heard after closing hours. So, what do you think? Was this nothing more than physics and a malfunctioning toy? Or did the security camera accidentally capture something unseen, quietly passing the time, playing with a toy when it thought no one was watching? This footage was captured by a security camera installed in a basement. One evening, the homeowner went downstairs to grab a few things when he got distracted by a message on his phone. He sat down, unaware that the camera behind him was recording something he wouldn't notice until much later. Out of nowhere, the calendar is ripped off the wall. 2 pages tear clean through as it comes down, and when he checked the wall afterward, the nail was still firmly in place. Even stranger, when he picked the calendar back up and tried to hang it again, the hole lined up perfectly with the nail, meaning the paper didn't stretch, tear open, or rip downward the way it normally would if gravity alone caused it to fall. Some viewers pointed out the dog's reaction, or lack of one. Instead of barking or panicking, the dog simply moves away, as if giving space to something it sensed but didn't want to confront. What do you think? A man's brother came to stay over for a few days, and just a few hours after settling into the house, he had the feeling someone was shifting the bed in the guest room. He brushed it off, but as the night went on, the details stopped adding up. Eventually, the man decided to go back through the family's CCTV footage to see if anything unusual had been captured. Something was moving. But here's the problem. This is at least a queen-size bed, and his brother's wife is noticeably shorter, and from her sleeping position, her legs shouldn't even reach that far. Yet in the footage, her left leg flicks sharply and unnaturally, far faster and farther than would be possible for someone side sleeping in that position. So is something sharing the bed with them? You be the judge. This mysterious video was posted on Reddit, and ever since, people have gone into overdrive trying to analyze what they're seeing. While a family was out for the evening, with no one left behind in the house, their security camera captured something completely horrifying. What appears in the footage looks disturbingly like a small child walking through the house. When the family received a motion alert and checked the footage, they were immediately shaken. There were no children in the home and no pets. When they returned, still trying to rationalize what they'd seen, they reached out to the previous owners to ask if they had ever experienced anything strange while living there. That's when things got worse. The former occupants responded by sending their own video, footage from their Ring camera showing multiple orbs drifting around the property at night. They admitted they'd always felt like something was in the house with them. Then came another disturbing detail. The previous owners said their time in the house was marked by constant arguments, tension that seemed to come out of nowhere. Eventually, their marriage collapsed and they divorced, selling the house shortly after. Sadly, at the time this ghost child video was posted, the new owners were also in the middle of a divorce. And just like before, the house had gone back on the market. Different families, same house, same feeling, same ending. So is this just an unsettling coincidence? Or is there something about that house that doesn't let families stay whole? You decide. The following video was captured by a Ring camera inside a home. At the time, the homeowners were simply feeding their cat and didn't notice anything strange while it was happening. It wasn't until later, when they reviewed the footage, that they realized something else had been there with them the entire time. Watch closely.
Buddy.
At first glance, many people were quick to say it was just a reflection. But before you settle on that explanation, here's what the garage looks like during the day. There's no window there, and no reflective surface that would explain it. The empty space you see is exactly where the car was parked in the original video, and the red circle marks the exact spot where the unidentified figure appeared. Some viewers believe it might be a residual presence, briefly replaying an energy tied to the house rather than actively interacting with the environment. A few people pointed out the cat's behavior as well, and of course, skeptics argue it could still be a lighting anomaly or camera glitch, even without a visible source. The homeowners say they've never experienced anything like this before, but now that they've seen it, they can't stop wondering, was this a one-time glitch caught at the perfect moment, or something that's been there all along only now revealing itself? What do you think? Now, in this next video, a woman named Jennifer owns a beautiful, historic home that dates all the way back to 1907, filled with antique pieces that go as far back as 1903. But not long after moving in, Jennifer began experiencing things she couldn't explain, and things that steadily became harder to ignore. Soft footsteps when no one else was home, faint whispering that seemed to come from empty rooms, objects shifting ever so slightly when she wasn't looking, and shadows, not quick tricks of the light, but lingering shapes that felt intentional. Concerned, she eventually reached out to several mediums, all of whom told her the same thing. They sensed children in the house. One evening, when the noises became louder and more persistent, Jennifer decided to pull out her phone and start recording, hoping to finally figure out what was causing it. Take a look.
Okay, I'm upstairs and the cracking was just me standing here. However, did you hear the sound after that? Because I'm a little freaked out. Because of course I'm home alone. And I'm scared. I'm gonna sit here and listen. See what I get. I just saw an orb. I saw an orb in the dining room across where the mediums have seen the children. And per usual, here's my sidekick making sure I'm okay. The innkeeper. Magnolia. I feel like I'm hearing like a faint music being played. And do you see that? Maybe it's just the shining from the lights. Just seems like something's in there right now. I walk down and see. Oh my God, what was that? Okay, I'm going over here. That was a big noise. That could not have been from the cat. She's still sitting there. Look at the mist around her right now, and she's looking. Oh boy.
What makes this even more unsettling is what Jennifer later discovered. After speaking with a local historian, she learned that when the house was built, there were no nearby hospitals, and it's believed that at least 4 people died inside the home. Deaths that likely occurred under stressful, emotional circumstances, the kind many believe can leave a lasting imprint on a place. Whether this footage captured lingering memories, restless spirits, or something far more aware, one thing is clear. Jennifer's home isn't just holding antiques from the past. It may be holding on to the past itself. The following video comes from another haunted home. This one owned by a woman named Lauren, who says the activity inside her house has been escalating for quite some time. Before this night, Lauren had already shared multiple unsettling incidents. She's discovered footprints appearing in the house that don't match the size or shape of anyone who lives there. She's seen figures moving at the edge of her vision, heard voices when she was completely alone, and watched objects shift or move without being touched. Each event on its own might be easy to brush off, but together they paint a much darker picture. One night, just as Lauren was about to go to bed, she began hearing whispering, so she reached for her phone and started recording. Listen closely.
What's that? What's that? Yeah, what was that, Teddy? Yeah, let's go down. Okay. Oh, no way.
Lauren was making a video to record the voice she heard. Instead, her camera caught a figure. Some viewers believe this could be intelligent haunting, where whatever is present is aware of Lauren and actively trying to make itself known. Others suggest the entity may be tied to the house itself, revealing itself more clearly as Lauren becomes more aware of its presence. But until Lauren shares more updates or captures clearer evidence, this case remains unresolved. Now, in this next video, a man captures something that's far from ordinary, and what happens afterward is even more unsettling. Watch closely.
Leave. Stop. You gotta go. Shh, 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 shh. Calm down. What are you? Stop. Charlie, come on. I don't even know how to explain what I'm seeing. Holy hell. No, this is crazy. Did you hear this last night? Yeah. It was going last night. Now, did you... Charlie, come here. I guarantee it's going to keep on. It'll do it again. So I don't know if you're going to see what I'm seeing, but this is on repeat. This happens over and over, and then the knocking happens. The knocking, there it is, and it just goes and goes until you stop. Can you stop, please? I mean, it's just right there. That's new. Okay. Whatever you are, you gotta go. And that's... Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Goodbye. Yes? Hello? What is that? Who are you? I'm not gonna hurt you. Leave my lights alone.
In the footage, you can clearly see hands pressed flat against the glass, and then they simply vanish. But what made this situation truly disturbing wasn't just the clip itself, it was what the man shared afterward. He says he began experiencing that overwhelming sensation many people describe, the feeling that someone is standing just behind you, close enough to feel, but never close enough to see. He'd wake up in the morning to find his closet door wide open, even though he knew it had been shut before going to bed. And worse, the same set of handprints he saw on the glass outside now appeared on his mirror, pressed deep, as if someone had been standing inside the room, watching him while he slept. He keeps seeing a figure dressed in black, always briefly, always just out of reach, never long enough to fully make out its face. So what do you think he's dealing with? And if those hands weren't human, whose were they? This one remains deeply unsettling. In this next video, a couple experiences something strange inside their home, and this time their security camera captured it. Have a look.
Clearly, someone told the boss that we've got a new car, and he's pulled up next to me, and he's come into the office, and he is flustered. He's gone like, he's thrown everything, right? No.
Thanks, Dave. Love you too. Anyway, you were saying?
No, we don't. That's not how this works. No. I don't want to carry on with this story anymore.
He's like, yes, it is.
No. See you later.
In the footage, one of the kitchen drawers slides open on its own, even though no one is standing anywhere near it. What immediately stood out to viewers wasn't just the movement, it was the woman's reaction. According to her, this isn't even close to the worst thing she's seen in that house. She later explained that drawers opening on their own has become almost normal. There have been nights when she's heard footsteps pacing through the hallway, even though everyone in the house was already in bed. Sometimes she hears what sounds like someone quietly moving things around in the kitchen, only to walk in and find everything exactly where it should be, except for one item that's clearly been disturbed. According to her, whatever's in the house doesn't feel aggressive. If anything, she believes it might be a spirit looking for attention without actually causing harm. That belief is the only reason she doesn't think much about moments like this anymore. But others aren't so convinced. So the question is this really just a harmless ghost trying to be noticed? You decide. The following video is an update from Nate, the same man who's been documenting something repeatedly peeking out from his basement, along with a voice that's almost always whispering in his recordings. One night, Nate noticed his dog acting strangely. The dog began pacing, whining, and repeatedly looking toward the kitchen, clearly trying to alert him that something wasn't right. Nate brushed it off at first, until the dog suddenly ran out of the kitchen and went straight to the couch, where it froze, staring toward the kitchen, refusing to move. Watch closely.
Watching over at that spot. What'd you see? What is it? Tell Daddy. What'd you see? Where is it? Guys, always trust your pets. She got to like right here. Nothing in here. She is like following something. I don't know what she's following. Alright, I'm not sure what that was. No fucking way. No fucking way. I do not want you here. You are not allowed here.
Animals don't second guess what they sense, and dogs especially don't react like this without a reason. What happens next is what truly changes the tone of this entire situation. Up until now, whatever Nate has been dealing with mostly stayed subtle, whispering voices, peeking movements, objects shifting slightly. Because of that, many people believed it was a woman's spirit, especially given the soft whispering heard in earlier clips. Some thought she was trapped, confused, maybe even trying to ask for help or find peace. But this time, it crossed a line. A knife was thrown, and that single moment made people rethink everything. A spirit trying to communicate doesn't usually escalate to weapons, so is this still the spirit of a woman trying to pass on, or was that narrative wrong from the beginning? I'll leave you to be the judge. Now in this next clip, popular Midwest ghost hunter Ian returns to what many locals consider the most haunted house in Minnesota, the infamous Boyd House. This is a place already known for some truly disturbing claims, dolls that seem to move on their own, unexplained footsteps, and the sound of children giggling when no one else is there. But this time, as Ian enters the house, it's unusually quiet. No noises, no movement, but the silence didn't last long. Watch closely.
Holy dude, something just came towards me. What the heck was that? Hello? Oh my gosh. Who's there? I just heard like footsteps, like heavy footsteps coming like right towards me just now, coming from the parlor here. And what's even weirder is I felt like a cold breeze like rushing towards me. I don't know if you could somehow hear it or something.
That single moment was enough to convince Ian that whatever had been dormant inside the Boyd house was no longer resting. The Boyd house was built back in 1901 and served as the longtime home of Freddie Hart, his wife Minnie, and 11 children. Now Ian needed to know who was with him.
Minnie, is that you? Are you in the kitchen right now? Those are just my creaky footsteps. Minnie, if you were up here, could you? Whoa, 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 whoa! Dude, what the heck? That light just turned on! It just turned on by itself! Oh my gosh. Dude, she is in there.
Just like previous tenants have described, cabinets began opening, and moments later, a light turned on by itself. At that point, Ian felt confident this wasn't random. The behavior matched the reports almost perfectly. If the stories are true, Minnie's spirit doesn't hide. She rearranges, interacts, and makes her presence known. For more haunting videos, subscribe to the channel now. The following video was captured on the night of March 24th, 2026 at exactly 9:35 p.m. by a Topo security camera mounted on a quiet rural property, far from busy roads, far from neighbors, far from anything that could easily explain what you're about to see. At first, it looks ordinary. The night is calm and nothing feels out of place, then the door moves. But that's not the part that unsettles people the most. Look closer at the window. For a brief moment, so quick you might miss it, a figure passes by, and here's where things start to feel wrong. Because whatever moved that door, whatever walked past that window, it doesn't behave like something bound by the same rules we are, and it raises a question that's hard to shake. What if there are things that move through our world freely, unseen most of the time, only revealing themselves in fragments like this? Not trapped, not tied to a place, just passing through. And if that's true, how often do they walk through spaces we think are empty? In this next clip, the footage comes from a security camera mounted inside what appears to be a workshop filled with tools, tables, and storage equipment. The kind of place that usually sits in complete stillness for hours. No movement, no activity, and no reason for anything to shift on its own. The timestamp reads 3:45 in the morning on March 10th, a time when everything, especially in a place like this, should be completely silent. But it isn't. Something is clearly disturbing the space, but nothing is visible. And then, a shadow moves. Some viewers believe a small animal could explain the initial movement, but if that were the case, you'd expect some kind of chain reaction. Other objects shifting, something knocking over, a visible trace of movement. But the room stays unnaturally contained. Others believe the location itself might play a role. The clip is said to be from Finkroken Brygge, a quiet coastal area in northern Norway. Isolated, surrounded by cold waters and long stretches of darkness during certain times of the year. Places like this have a long history of folklore tied to the unseen. In old Scandinavian stories, coastal buildings, boathouses especially, were believed to attract Vadir, nature-bound spirits said to inhabit land, water, and man-made spaces. They weren't always hostile, but they were territorial, known to move objects, create sounds, and make their presence known when disturbed or ignored. So when you watch that shadow move, is it something passing through, something tied to that location, or something that never really left? You decide. Now, in this next clip, someone filmed this from outside a property during the day, shooting handheld through a metal fence toward a backyard. The weather was overcast, the footage is low resolution and shaky, and at first glance, there's nothing obviously wrong. Just a yard, a tree, a white framed enclosure in the background, birds chirping steadily throughout. But then you notice something. Watch. The footage is said to have been captured near an elementary school in San Antonio, an area with a long, layered history. San Antonio is known for its deep cultural roots, but also for its share of paranormal stories. From reports around the famous ghost tracks, where people claim unseen forces move cars, to accounts of shadow figures seen near older buildings and school grounds. So when you see that movement in the corner, is it just a stray animal or something else? You decide what it is. This next video was recorded at night inside what appears to be a home, and whoever was holding the camera seemed to believe they'd caught something outside that couldn't easily be explained. There's no dramatic buildup here, no warning, just a camera pointed at a narrow window in a quiet room, a low mechanical hum filling the silence, and something on the other side of the glass that stopped them cold. Watch. Through the window, something absolutely strange appears. It doesn't move, it doesn't shift, and that stillness, for a lot of viewers, is exactly what makes it hard to dismiss. Some think it's a reflection of something inside the room caught in the glass, while others believe the shape is genuinely outside. A figure standing in the dark, watching. The person filming clearly didn't feel comfortable going closer to find out. Then, instead of stepping away, they turn the camera toward the inside of the room to see if there's any other thing around. Watch. Some viewers think spaces like this, dense with old objects and figurines, can act almost like an anchor for residual energy, trapping impressions from past owners or from the figures themselves if they carry any kind of history. Others see the footage and think the unease is entirely psychological, and after a shape in the window and a room that looks like this, you have to wonder what it actually feels like to spend a night there. What else did you see in the video? Now in this next clip, a young boy is being filmed in his family's living room during the daytime. Nothing about the setting feels unusual. The TV is off, and the house is quiet in that calm, mid-morning way. Earlier that day, according to the mother, her son had been complaining about a missing toy. Nothing strange, just the usual back and forth of a child insisting something had been there before. At one point, he even mentioned hearing something in the house the night before, but it was brushed off. Kids imagine things. That's normal. So that morning, she casually pulls out her phone and starts recording him while he searches around the living room, half amused, half trying to capture a cute moment. At first, everything feels light. He moves from one spot to another, checking under cushions, behind furniture. Then, this happened. As the boy searches around, a very unsettling sound is heard. It doesn't sound like anything in the house, not a chair scraping, not a pet, not a voice you can easily place. It's closer to a growl, but even that doesn't fully capture it. For a split second, the entire energy of the room shifts, and then it's gone. Moments like this tend to divide people. Some say it's just audio distortion, maybe something outside, maybe the microphone picking up a sound and warping it. Others suggest it could be something completely explainable that just sounds worse than it is. But then there's the other side. In many traditions, there are stories of entities that don't appear visually at first, but make themselves known through sound. Not full voices, not clear words, just low, unnatural tones. Growls, murmurs, vibrations. So when you hear that sound, was it just a random noise caught at the wrong moment, or was it something in that room, making itself known? You be the judge. In this next clip, a young girl is sitting in her car seat during the day, happily snacking, crumbs everywhere, completely unbothered, the kind of ordinary moment parents capture all the time. She's chewing, looking toward the camera, and everything about the scene feels completely routine. Then something changes. Watch. In a split second, her snack shifts unnaturally. Not slipping, not falling, but moving in a way that suggests it was taken, as if something unseen reached out and pulled it directly from her hand. The motion isn't loose or accidental, it has direction, intent, and timing that feels disturbingly precise, especially considering there is nothing visible around her that could have caused it. When an unseen force interacts physically in such a direct way, especially with a child, it can be a form of testing boundaries, small actions that escalate over time if not acknowledged or addressed. In certain African and Asian folklore, similar encounters are sometimes linked to mischievous or even malevolent spirits that engage in minor acts first, taking small objects, creating confusion, before progressing into more noticeable disturbances. So now, the question isn't just what took the snack, but how long it's been there, close enough to reach out and touch without ever being noticed. This next clip comes from a family living in a home that once belonged to someone who recently passed away, a detail that already adds weight to what was captured, especially in places where people believe that death doesn't always mean departure, at least not immediately. At the time this happened, the mother was away for a few days, leaving her son and the rest of the household behind, the night quiet, everyone else already in bed and asleep. The kind of stillness where even the smallest sound becomes noticeable. Her son was sitting alone in front of the wood stove, warming up, the room dim, the atmosphere calm, nothing out of place, nothing suggesting that anything unusual was about to happen. And then he heard something. Listen closely. A woman's voice softly saying, "Hey," not distorted, not distant, but close enough to feel like it came from inside the room, directed, intentional, as if it was meant for him to hear it. In certain traditions, it is believed that when someone passes away, their presence can linger for a period of time, particularly in places they were deeply connected to. Not always in a harmful way, but sometimes in a state of transition, where they are still aware of their surroundings and occasionally attempt to interact. These interactions are often subtle at first, a voice, a movement, a sound meant to be noticed but not understood. But there are also more unsettling interpretations. Some believe that not every voice heard in these situations belongs to who people think it does. There are entities known for mimicking human voices, using simple familiar words like "hey" or calling out softly to draw attention, to test whether they are being heard, and in some cases to invite a response. These are often described as deceptive presences, ones that do not reveal themselves fully, but instead begin with something small, something harmless sounding, before escalating over time. So what do you think was in there with him? The following clip is about a family we've talked about on this channel before, and if you remember their story, then you already know things got pretty unsettling the first time around. Here's a quick rundown. It all began on random nights when their daughter would suddenly wake up crying, and while they were trying to calm her down, they'd hear someone knocking on their front door. It went on for several nights until the father finally decided to check. And the moment he opened that door, there was a figure standing right outside. After that encounter, the knocking stopped, but the house wasn't the same. Strange movements, electronics acting up, little things happening that didn't feel like coincidences. They prayed, they waited, and after a few months, the house finally settled. No knocking, no shadows, no disturbances. For a while, it seemed like whatever had shown up that night had moved on. But now, months later, the pattern seems to be starting all over again. Watch this.
Vente, vente, vente. Le están tocando.
Sí. La niña empezó a llorar.
Ya no haga mucho ruido para ver quién es. No prendas. ¿Cómo rápido? Está bien inquieta, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Ya son casi las 3 de la mañana. ¿Dónde están las llaves? Hoy. No se ve. Voy a abrirlo. Ahí quédate, espérame. No hay nadie. No hay nadie, no hay nadie. No, uy, otra vez. Sin menos. ¿Quién será? No es nadie, Ceci. Yo creo que ya nos subimos a dormir. Ya. Vámonos. Vámonos porque igual le voy a enseñar la hora. Siempre pasa lo mismo. Miren. Son casi las 3 de la mañana. 25. Siempre hace lo mismo, ¿verdad? Ya vamos a... Voy a cerrar otra vez.
This time, they knew better than to open the door. They didn't want to repeat the same mistake, but one night, while his wife was trying to put their baby girl to sleep, the house security camera picked up something they never expected to see. Watch this.
Sí, mira, quiero que observes bien este video y me digas qué te parece. Puede ser cualquier cosa, pudo ser una persona, pero realmente con seguridad no te sé qué decir. Observa los movimientos de mi hija de 4 meses, como ya está casi dormida y ahorita en un ratito como que se altera. El video no tiene audio, así que por eso se lo estoy relatando. Vean ahí cómo se alteró mi hija y ve directamente hacia el portón. Miren, ahí está observando, ahí se asomó algo. Vean eso. Vean lo extraño que el color de piel que tiene eso, vean. Y mi hija ahí está alterada y si se dan cuenta, no deja de mirar hacia el portón. Vean, mi hija está mirándolo. Ahí se volteó y eso se desvaneció. Bastante extraño.
If you take a good look at the footage, the little girl is completely calm at first, just resting, until something shifts. Out of nowhere, she gets upset and she starts crying, like she's reacting to something we can't see. And if you look at the door, a faint figure seems to be peeking inside. The father said he couldn't place the shape at all, and what made it worse is that he never saw anything walk away. 1 second the figure was there, and the next, it wasn't. No footsteps, no movement, no shadows trailing off. Just there, then gone. And with everything they've experienced before, people began to wonder if this was the same presence that stood outside their door months ago, or if something completely new had entered the picture. Then, around 2 a.m., their daughter started crying again. But this time, it wasn't the knocking, it was something far worse. proof that whatever they'd been dealing with wasn't outside anymore. It was inside the house. Have a look.
No digas mamadas. No. ¿Qué dijo? ¿Eh? ¿Qué dijo? No mames, güey. Se me va a apagar. Está hablando. No, güey. No, la verga. No mames, no chingues. Se puso feo. Se puso feo, raza. Se puso feo, les dije. No mames, güey.
It didn't take long before the knocking returned too, and when it came back, it wasn't random or occasional anymore. It happened every single night, like something determined, something trying to wear them down. Imagine living with that, knowing it's coming, knowing you can't stop it, and counting down the seconds until it starts again. Eventually, even though he knew exactly what happened the last time, he started opening doors, but only the doors inside. And what happened next felt like going from bad to something much worse, almost like stepping out of the frying pan and straight into the fire. Watch.
No sé si se escuche. Oigan, como si estuvieran en la parte de enfrente. No mames. Son las 2 de la mañana. Uy, cabrón. Voy a buscar las llaves. No mames, está acá enfrente, ¿eh? Uy, uy. Como... No mames. Ah, cabrón. No mames, cabrón.
The activities in the house escalated after that night, but this time the knocking didn't stop. And you know what they say. When the knocking refuses to end, it usually means whatever is outside isn't trying to leave, it's trying to come in. And in situations like this, people believe persistent knocking is a sign that the presence has grown stronger, more intentional, almost desperate for access. It got so bad that it began waking the entire family every single night. At this point, they started to believe that not opening the main door wasn't protecting them from anything, because strange things were still happening inside the house even on nights they kept the door shut. But at least if they open it, the knocking would stop for a few hours, just enough peace to reach the morning. So reluctantly, they fell into a routine. Every time the knocking returned, the father would open the door just to make it stop, until one night he walked toward the entrance expecting the same pattern, but instead saw something deeply unsettling. Watch this.
Johnny.
Johnny, están tocando.
¿Ah?
Están tocando.
¿Quién es?
Nadie, no sé.
¿Están tocando?
Sí.
Ah, sí, no manches.
Escucha.
Otra vez, güey, a ver. Dame, a ver, aguanta. Espérame aquí, aguántame.
Sí.
Otra vez. Son las 3 de la mañana, gente. Son casi las 3 de la mañana. ¿Qué quieres? ¿Qué es lo que quieres? Deja de molestar. Quiero que te largues. ¿Qué es eso? Oh, no manches. Oh, no manches. Ceci.
This wasn't a neighbor, this wasn't a prank. What he saw looked dark and full of intent, the kind of thing that doesn't accidentally show up at your door. And when you connect this moment to everything else, the figure peeking inside the house, the child crying at unseen things, the sudden electronic malfunctions, the rocking chair moving on its own, the doll moving, it all begins to feel like one presence that finally revealed its true form. Now the family is actively seeking help from anyone who can make sense of all this. But while they search for answers, the knocking hasn't stopped. They still open the door sometimes, but now with extreme caution, because they never know what might be standing there.
Mira. Y el chiquito no.
Mira, no mames.
¡Vámonos de esta casa!
Ya, yo voy grabando.
Tranquila. ¿Quién anda ahí?
To make matters worse, the electricity in the house hasn't been the same since the night they saw that strange figure. Lights flicker, appliances glitch, and even their older kid is getting tired of living in a place that feels more haunted with every passing night. In the next clip they posted, things took a turn none of them were prepared for. What used to happen strictly at night, the knocking, the footsteps, the strange movements, suddenly began happening in broad daylight. Objects would shift from one spot to another, heavy thudding footsteps, as if someone unseen was walking up the stairs, and random items in the house kept going missing only to reappear in odd places. Then one afternoon, the father captured something on camera that left both viewers and investigators genuinely alarmed. Watch this.
¿Estás escuchando?
Sí.
Vente. Son las 2 de la tarde, se está manifestando algo. Tengo que decir que no hay nadie. Estoy completamente solo. No manches. Se acaba de abrir la puerta del cuarto. Este cuarto, pues nadie lo habita. Vente, Neto, no te quedes. Se vio claramente cómo se abrió la puerta sola y no hay ni viento. De hecho, está cerrada la ventana, todo está cerrado. No, Neto. Vámonos.
Even with every window shut and all doors locked, one door slowly opened on its own, like someone on the inside had gently pushed it. Many believe this was a sign the presence inside the home has grown comfortable, too comfortable, almost as if it no longer cares to hide its movements. Others think letting it in that very first night might have given it access it never should have had, and now it's roaming the entire house freely, crossing boundaries it once respected. And things have only gotten worse night after night. The family is so desperate that viewers have sent their clips to paranormal experts, hoping someone can offer answers or at least a solution to stop the constant fear they're living in. But while they wait for help, every day and every night brings a new disturbance. One night, it sounded like someone was in the kitchen, loud enough that the husband thought an intruder might have broken in. But when he went to check, this is what he found.
Oye, voy a ir a bajar,
Sí, a ver, ve a checar qué es.
Voy a ver, ahí quédate con la niña.
Sí.
Hasta se despertó, ¿va?
Sí.
No hay nadie. Por lo regular siempre se escucha como si hubiera alguien ahí en la cocina. Se escuchaba que estaban jugando con los trastes, como si estuvieran botando cosas, así bastante fuerte. Lo primero que pensé es que se habían metido a la casa. Mierda. ¿Qué hacen esos sartenes botados? Miren. Empieza a sentir un escalofrío en esta parte bastante fuerte. Voy a levantar esto. Miren cómo estaba colgado esto. Ay. ¿Qué es lo que quieres? Lárgate de aquí. ¿Por qué nos molestas? Oh, madre de Dios. ¿Qué es eso que se escucha? Lárgate de aquí. No mames, güey. Hey, la sangre de Cristo tiene poder. Sea lo que sea, no perteneces aquí. Lárgate. Necesitamos ayuda, por favor. Esto se está saliendo de control, amigos. ¿Qué es eso?
Pans scattered all across the floor, and before he could even finish placing them back, something else happened. Sudden, sharp, and terrifying. Almost like the presence wanted to make sure he knew he wasn't alone in that kitchen. At this point, whatever is haunting this home is no longer subtle, no longer shy, no longer hiding in the shadows. It's active, bold, and possibly growing stronger. And before this turns into something violent, the family is pleading for help, hoping someone can intervene before things get even worse.